Welcome to Sports CTO Talks. In this series, we would be connecting with industry leaders from the sports and technology domain. I am Ami, your guide on this journey through the mind of amazing tech leaders who are shaping the future of sports and technology. We will dive deep into discussions about AI and cloud, from cybersecurity to sustainability. If it is sports tech, we are talking about it. Today, we have a very interesting guest with us on our podcast. Hi.
Hi, Ami. It's Ivan here. Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be on your wonderful podcast.
Absolutely. We have with us Ivan Veronica. He is the founder and CEO of In Europe. He played basketball professionally in the USA and Europe before starting a career in international relations. He is a father of two amazing teenage children and an admirer of drama and poetry. In Europe is a leading In Europe is a leading Europe-wide provider of sports and education tours for international clients. It was established in 2010 in Croatia and has since grown to encompass 10 more European destinations, as well as separate brand swim caps. Having worked with some of the world's biggest federations, professional clubs, and university programs, in Europe relies heavily on the knowledge of local terrain, attention to detail, and unbeatable customer service. Today, Ivan would be talking. Ivan, right? Or Ivan, you tell
Yes,
me.
Ivan. Yes, spot on, Ami. Yes, you got it. Good for you. So yeah, thank you.
Today, Ivan would be talking about innovations, grit from the grassroots to global champions in swimming as a topic with us and sharing all his knowledge in that. Once again, we welcome you to the podcast. And my first question, and a very basic question to you is what are the opportunities these days into swimming, and how a kid from beginning can nurture swimming? What are the challenges faced by kids or youth or teenagers? And I just want to understand swimming as a whole from you.
It's a very good question, and unfortunately, not a very simple one. So it's socially, if you think about it, how do we choose any sport? How do we choose our identity? How do we choose what we want to be connected to and what we don't want to be connected to? And it's a part of a much bigger global picture, really. The big thing really is there's two things I would say. One is a psychological thing, which is how do you get somebody from stop identifying as Leo Messi or as LeBron James or one of the big stars from the big sports, which are everywhere around us, because big sports like football, like basketball have lots of money there. And obviously, wherever you go, there's got to be a Coca-Cola commercial, a Pepsi commercial, big commercials with big stars. And swimming is just not one of these sports, so that's the psychological one that we're going to go back to in a second. The second one is the infrastructural, the physical question, which is, are there pools where you can swim? Is there seawater that's safe that you can swim in? Because unless, of course, you have a source of water, it's impossible to start a swim career, So to me, I would probably say the bigger question is the psychological question. What swimming really has as a very, very strong positive is that most parents understand the importance of swimming in life. So whereas, of course, it'll be nice if my son plays football, it'll be nice if my daughter ends up in volleyball or something, swimming is more or less perceived as a must for most parents. So they will include their children in swimming schools at a relatively young age. And I would say, to me, probably when we talk about grassroots swimming, finding a first good trainer, a first good coach, a first good school that you would enroll it is absolutely key. And Ami, I'm sure that you have also memories from your youth when you were starting a sport or when you went to school and, you had, for example, I had a relatively bad chemistry teacher in elementary school, and I never liked chemistry. I had a great English teacher, and I always loved English. So, it's finding that right person who is going to bring something closer to you so that you really start loving it. Because swimming very much depends on love. So, unlike most other sports in which, I don't know, I was a basketball player, First of all, you can always motivate yourself. When I was growing up, obviously, this was the time of Michael Jordan, and like before him, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. So it's very easy to be like, okay, I want to be like that guy, because, but swimming doesn't have that. We had, historically speaking, swimmers that were globally popular were Mark Spitz in the 70s, who later on had a movie career with that he was Tarzan in the movies, which is why he really was huge. And then for a long time, nothing. Ian Thorpe, maybe, the Australian that people might have heard of. And then more recently, of course, Michael Phelps, who became a global phenomenon, and for all the good reasons, but he had to win 20 gold medals over the Olympics to become that household name for many people. And now, of course, we have Katie Ledecky, and Caleb Dressel was huge for a while. Léon Marchand, the upcoming star. But these are not names that will roll off the tongue like Cristiano Ronaldo, like Leo Messi.
Absolutely.
So for a young person, especially once you've learned how to swim, and then maybe you're 12, 13, 14, so school is getting more difficult. Maybe you're starting to get interested in boys and girls, whatever not, your hormones are going crazy. And it's very difficult to force yourself to spend 4 hours in a pool every day, essentially counting tiles, unless, of course, you have that really strong motivation to keep on going. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that swimming as a sport is facing today. But having said that, to me, it really comes back down to having a great coach. And then, of course, what great leaders, what great coaches do, they create a community of like-minded, driven individuals who dedicate themselves. They form this group identity. They form a very strong bond. And to me, I would say that's the key thing. So really, and this is a hit and miss, finding that one person who is going to be a catalyst for a swimming movement, be it as a coach, a club owner, whatever it might be, is huge. And then the second thing, of course, that I mentioned is having the infrastructure to run swimming programs. And that really depends on the municipality that you're growing up in. At least that's how it is in most of the Western world. The municipalities, the cities, sometimes universities will invest into a swimming pool. And because it is for a private to invest into a pool, it's difficult, it's expensive. So you really want to be somewhere where there is access to good water. And that's, again, a hit and miss. I don't know what the situation is like in India. Are there pools readily available, or is it still more of an overnight?
There are government pools, there are private pools. Private pools are expensive, like, monthly subscriptions, yearly subscriptions. So, like, and government pools are maintained, not maintained, depending on the situation, depending on the area, the locality. There are a lot of factors involved here.
Of course. Yeah, that's the thing. So really, I think what's nice, if there is a nice pool, especially if it's governmentally owned, municipality owned, then that will attract kids, because when there's a nice facility, you want to be there. I was fortunate, even though I wasn't a professional swimmer, later on I became a swimmer, and we worked with some of the biggest swimming programs in the world. I was fortunate to grow up, number one, on the Adriatic Sea, in what was then Yugoslavia, later on became Croatia. And it's a beautiful sea to swim in, high salination, easy to learn how to swim in. And then right next door to where I live, there's one of the nicest pool complexes at which we still host USA Swimming and many other programs, which is Kantrida swimming pools in Rijeka, Croatia. So it was easy enough for me to be inspired to go to a pool. And then, of course, you have good swim competitions, you have good water polo competitions. So it's easy for a young person to go there and form really what is the key thing in pursuing any sport, which is for a sport to become a part of your identity, that you start identifying at an early age as a swimmer or as a basketball player, as a football player, whatever it might be. Because without that, of course, it's just going to be one of the things that you do. And I guess, having spoken to, we work with a lot of tremendously accomplished coaches, many of them Olympians, so on and so forth. So really, really nice human beings. And another thing that's kind of getting in the way now is the telephone. You know, the social media, the fact that parents stick the telephone into the kids' hand when they're 2 or 3 years old because they need to work or do whatever. And kids just get used to the dopamine of, you know, whatever they find, whatever app, whatever game they play on that telephone. And to get them away and to get them into the pool or, you know, a gym or anything, it's all is getting more and more difficult because you can't get the same type of dopamine release from 2 hours in a pool that you can from 2 hours in front of a video game. That's just how the brain works. And obviously, long-term wise, it's causing a big problem because it's causing us not to develop our bodies in the same healthy way that we used to over the past centuries. Because if you're just glued to the screen, you're not doing something to make your body better, healthier, more immune at the end of the day to the many things that we have to deal with. So yeah, I'm hoping. Obviously, I don't have a magic stick here. I don't have a magic wand to say "𝗶𝗺𝗺𝗺𝗵, let's live without cell phones." But it would be really nice if fewer parents resorted to just sticking the cell phones into their kids' hands and be like, "Okay, do this. I'm busy."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like when you were talking about clubs and communities and, you know, having that one person. So how all those things like clubs, communities, schools, a mentor or a coach, you know, like how can they work together and create a meaningful environment for a swimmer or for any athlete for that matter, that the person can go reach to nationals or global competitions and participate in more and more competitions?
Of course. That's, again, a really good question, multi-layered one as well. I would say in any sport, but I would say in swimming especially, the switch from being an under-18 swimmer, so an age group swimmer, to a professional swimmer, 18 plus, is crucial. And I know many young athletes, young swimmers who have a good career, who have devoted most of their teenage years to swimming. And then you turn 18 and all of a sudden you're not going against people who are your age and you're sort of used to being at the top. If you're 18, you're going to go against 28-year-olds. You know, you're going to go against people who had another decade in developing their technique and developing their body. They have more muscle, they have more experience. It's almost impossible unless you're tremendously good to compete at such a level. So really, to me, what I always advocate and what I think the United States have this advantage over the rest of the world is the university system, the collegiate sports system, in which you don't only get 4 more years from 18 to 22 or 23 sometimes to develop your body, to develop your technique, your swimming prowess, but also you get an education, which to me probably is even more important because, you know, it's unless you're top level, it's going to be difficult for you to live off of swimming for your entire life. So I always advocate, look, education is more important than your athletic career. Far from it that you shouldn't focus on your athletic career, you absolutely should. But if you can get an education with that, that's going to make your life long-term wise a lot more saleable, because you will have something to do when you're 35. You know, like what do you do? It's not like you'll swim until you're 30, you play basketball until you're 33. What do you do afterwards? You know, and that's a big question. So to me, something that I would always advocate for international swimmers is if they can get a scholarship, if they can be good in school, if they can learn English well, then that to me is a fantastic thing. It's a great portal. But going back to answer the first part of your question, getting to that point that you're 18 and that you're good enough to merit a scholarship at a university in the States, Yeah, a lot of things really need to come together. You know, a lot of things really need to come together. And I would say, number one, having a swimming facility, and number two, having a person or a group of people who recognize the potential of that and who love swimming, you know, who love diving or water polo or whatever it might be, and who will communicate that love to the swimmers that they coach, to the swimmers that they teach. To me, that's probably the key thing, because you don't just learn how to swim, you also learn how to love. You also learn how to develop a passion for something that you're doing. Because, like I said before, you're not going to be a swimmer forever. But then later on, maybe at the age of 30 or 25, or whenever you decide to go into something else, like you go into business, I went into business, and you still want to do something that you're passionate for, and you still want to invest yourself into something that you do. Most of the people in my company are ex-athletes of some sort, and I enjoy working with them. The work ethic is fantastic. They bring themselves into it. It's a different mentality to a large degree. So yeah, it's a special. I would say it's a special stamp, emotional stamp that you have, because you've spent your formative years doing something that you very much love. So I would say, for me, something that I can't influence enough, or something I can't accentuate enough, is if you're a national federation or if you're a regional federation in a country that's as big as India, of course, really do train the trainers programs, coach the coaches programs, in which you will get good, inspirational people to come in, people who have competed at a high level, but not just that, but people who are nice as human beings, people who really love what they do, people who love swimming, and to talk to the local coaches, to show them, number one, some technical tips on how to coach better, what are some things that from their experience worked or didn't work, and secondly, who will communicate their passion for swimming to the local coaches, because that's the type of support then that the local coaches can receive, and they can sort of like say, great, okay, let's use this and let's use that. And you know that when you don't feel alone, when you feel that you have somebody in your corner, then really the results are typically a lot better than when you feel that you have to plow on by yourself. So I would say that's a huge thing, and if there is a possibility for regional and national swimming federations, associations around the world to bring in these experts from abroad to sort of like have this grassroots growth of swimming coaches as well, then obviously, you know, the swimming coaches will pass that down to the swimmers and so on and so forth. And then you can be knocking on heaven's door. So yeah, that to me is probably the best thing to go forward.
Absolutely. So, like, when you were talking about this, I want to, like, I would like to hear a few stories or a few examples about resilience into swimmers and, like how they have emerged over the period of time. Like, or if there are any examples, if you could give from grassroots to, at a certain level, even if they have participated on a state level or a school level or something, like I just want if you could share a few examples.
So, I mean, to me, I would say probably, I'm not going to name any names. That would be
Absolutely.
unprofessional. Obviously, many of my friends, professional swimmers, very professional swimmers. And what I truly admire about them is their mental resilience. So I was a basketball player, and in basketball, it's a lot more social of a sport. You know, there's 10 of you on the court, 12 of you on the team. There's always a bit of banter, you know, like you miss something, you talk to other people, you know, like every play up and down the court is slightly different. In swimming, you don't get that. It's a very solitary sport, if you think about it. So you jump in, and if you're training at a high level for 4 hours a day, it's you in the lane, and you know the coach's whistle, and you know he'll talk to you from time to time, but mostly it's really just you and the pool and your stroke. And having that type of, it's almost like meditation in many ways, because you don't know where your mind is going to go once you are inside the pool, and it's just you yourself there. And it can be a very lonely and a very daunting place because you don't know where it's going to go. So for me, really, having the mental resilience, the mental toughness to be a swimmer is takes a special type of person. And also, many of the people that have made it to the very top that I know personally, and I know their stories, they've come from backgrounds that are not always idyllic, from backgrounds in which, I don't know, they may have had a tough childhood, or they may have had physical trauma happen to them at a young age. And because of that, they went into swimming, and they just have a really, really strong mental resilience. So to me, swimming is a beautiful thing. Also, I would say from a mental point of view of making a point, proving something, being very strong, being very resilient. From the bodily point of view, it is the healthiest sport that you can possibly be doing. So the most scientists prove that the most number of muscles work when you are swimming. So it's and you know it yourself. Most swimmers look like demigods. So it's a fantastic sport to be in. And
True.
and I would say spiritually, of course, I would say it's fantastic, because yes, you go through a lot. You really spend a lot of time with yourself in the pool, having thoughts that you can't necessarily control, having conversations with yourself, having to find that zen, really. And many of my swimmer friends have described it in those exact same words. It's, you kind of need to get into that flow, into that zen, in which you're just going to keep on plowing through the water, which is difficult to do, because like in any sport, but especially in swimming, you can be your own worst enemy. And if you get into your own head, and if you can't find the breathing rhythm, and so on and so forth, then it can be very, very difficult for you to have a swimming career or whatever, because yeah, it's just you yourself in that pool, and going up and down. And especially if you're a sprinter, all that work, years and years of work, come into 22 seconds of swimming, and you really, and the margin is going to be, a hundredth of a second. So it can be a very daunting prospect. So I would say, in terms of mental toughness, I would say in terms of emotional resilience, swimmers are a special breed, and to me are very, very inspiring people, and also very humble people, because unlike, we work across the board with lots of different sports. You'll sometimes run into football players, basketball players who play at a low level, but they feel like you should be kissing their shoes, because they're, football players, basketball players, whatever. No, they have however many followers on Instagram, and that's why they think that, there's something special. I would say 99% of the swimmers I know, regardless of how high a level they swam at, and some of them are top athletes in the world, they're very humble, they're very grounded. They don't have any arrogance about them. They want to help. They're just really lovely people. So, yeah, I would say that's another thing that you probably get from spending all that time by yourself in the pool, going up and down, and not getting that exposure that you will get typically in other sports. Then yes, I think you really develop this beautiful personality as well, that you're just a more grounded, a more humane human being.
Okay. So like now I want to understand the other aspects of technology. Like, how can underwater analytics or wearable technology, or even these days there is AI reshaping all the industries for that matter. So like, how accessible is that to swimming per se, and like, how people are adopting to it, and is it benefiting the players in any way?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would say today, well, in any sport, but in swimming as well, I would say even more so. Technology has really changed the way in which we train. So if you compare it to 30 years ago, when it's just jump in the pool, go up and down, and that's it, you know. And if you're fast, you're fast. If you're not, you're not. Tough luck, you know, on you go. Um, so I would say yes, today you have access to a lot more. And again, that comes down to the coach and how bothered they are, how driven they are to implement these things. Because to a certain degree, your physical talent is going to get you further or not further. So, you know, we're all born with different bodies, and for some people it's going to be easy to jump high. For some people, it's going to be easier to swim fast. For some people, it's going to be easier to skate very well. Some people, wrestling will be their choice sport in which they're good. And it depends on your genetic qualities that you bring into the world, or rather that you're born with. So if you're a 12-year-old swimmer, 11-year-old swimmer, for some, you know, swimming is going to be more natural than for others. It's then, I would say, at about 13, 14, that you really need to start thinking about the little things that can make you a little bit faster. Because in the beginning, you progress very fast at a very short time. And then all of a sudden, you kind of hit that first ceiling and you're thinking like, all right, what do I do now? You know, this is where it's key that you have a good coach. And through our brand swim camps, we work with some of the best coaches, 𝗀𝗶𝗺𝗺𝗺, Kemi Smith, Hannah Miley, to name but a few. And I'll go and I'll watch the training sessions and do exactly that. They do underwater, they'll sit down, they have an individual chat with every swimmer. Every little thing matters. It's really remarkable how many little things can make a big difference in a stroke, in the extension, in the way that your arm or your hand exits the water. So there's that little things that can make a big difference. And then, of course, what we discussed before is also the mental side of seeing where you are as a swimmer when you're 13, 14, 15. Are you struggling? Do you still have enough motivation? Do you not have enough motivation? Are you beginning to get angry? What are you venting through yourself? All these types of things. And then I would say, yes, let's say at the age of 15, 16, also with access to a good gym, fitness gym, access to the right type of equipment for swimming. This becomes really important because I would say up until 15, 20 years ago, you could pretty much get by in top level swimming with your regular fitness equipment. Now it's becoming more and more specialized for swimming, and I would say again, going to a top program or going to a good university is key, because this is the type of stuff that only specialized gyms will have. But yes, underwater is tremendously important, and thankfully you don't need much today. You can have a GoPro, you know, and you just tape it to a stick, and you just have somebody follow you while you're swimming. And that goes a long way, you know, so that really goes a long way, as long as you have somebody who is going to go through the video with you and point out some things that could or could not be wrong.
So, like, what does a day in a swimmer looks like? Like, what do they have to do? Like, what food do they have to eat? How many hours do they have to train? Like, just an overview if you could give us.
Yeah, no worries. So I would say at the highest level, you will do 2 trainings a day, to what they call wet trainings, so in the pool. And let's say you wake up in the morning, you have to have a lot of food. So yeah, swimming is such an exhausting sport. And I used to think that basketball players eat a lot before I started working with swimmers, and it makes sense because your entire body is working, and your lungs are working, your heart's pumping so much blood. Obviously, you have to be very mindful of what you eat, but I would say before the first training, you'll have a light breakfast with some carbs, just so that your muscles can handle the first practice. Then after that, you'll typically refill it. So you'll have about two, I would say the morning practices typically will focus more on the distance. So going up and down and getting the distance in. And then you'll definitely want to refill with another little snack, around 10:30, 11. You'll want to go through as much protein as you can. So whether that is chicken, whether it's salmon, whether it's tuna fish, whether it's quinoa, whether it's beans, whatever it might be, a protein obviously helps you replenish the muscles after such a training practice. And then one of the nice things about swimmers is that you'll want to sleep. So
Yes.
it's not, it's not like when you have an 11, 12-year-old kid and you go like, well, you want him to have some downtime, but they have too much energy. Swimmers don't have that much energy after all that training, so they'll typically have a little downtime in the afternoon, then lunch, or if they're at university, obviously studying classes, whatever it might be. And then in the evening, another training, which will typically focus on technique. So small things that you can fix, maybe not as much accent on the distance that you're going to cover. And then another big dinner to make up for all the energy that you spent. And then any types of relaxation. Obviously, if you're going into competitions, you will be doing video analysis as well. If you're going into competitions and you're doing relays, you will spend a lot of time working on relays and making sure that your entries and exits are just right. But I would say that would be a typical day. The nice thing is, and obviously this is the highest level, but people
Correct.
don't have any excess energy at the end of the day. And same thing, we run camps for teenagers. And in most sports, when you run camps for teenagers, your fear is, will you have to contain them after dinner? Will they try to run away and, I don't know, end up in a coffee shop or a bar, or go down to the beach and, anything could happen. That's not a problem that we have with swimmers. It's fantastic. They'll have the dinner, they'll go to Rome, 10 p.m., lights out, they need to sleep because it's such an exhausting and beautiful sport in this way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's really interesting to, hear like what is like how a day shapes up for a swimmer. And it is interesting also. Like they have to
Yeah,
put so much efforts.
it is. It's. I mean, I don't know how much swimming you've done, Ami, but I've had a couple of long open water sessions that I trained for, a couple of island crossings and the like that I did. And I would say those are probably the most exhausting months preparing for those competitions, the most exhausting months of my life. And I have two children who are a year and a half apart, so I know what exhausting is. But it's just whether you're swimming in the pool, whether you're swimming in open water, if you do 4 or 5 hours a day, it's going to take a lot out of you. And I forgot to mention, of course, they always squeeze in 1 hour of dry training. So that means in a gym or fitness or yoga, which is becoming increasingly important, Pilates and yoga at
Yes.
the highest level sports, because people are beginning to realize, especially in sports like swimming, that it's not so much about muscle, but that
Hmm.
it's about bodily resilience and injury prevention. And I think that's a huge thing, because if you do what we used to do back in the 90s, just kind of like pump iron, a lot, your body gets encrusted. It's not flowy. It's not smooth. And that's why I fully support programs that include yoga, that include Pilates, injury prevention programs, because I think that's the future of sports.
Absolutely. So, like when we are talking about the highest level, the routine of a swimmer, like how do cultural norms, genders, or like different when we look at different societies, different people, so how is the participation from different cultures? Like, is it different for girls or is it same? And as an athlete, like I would like to understand that. What's the model there?
Um, I would say a lot still depends on what I will call cultural tradition sports. So, for example, I'll give an example of Lithuania, where basketball is absolutely the #1 sport. And whoever is born into Lithuania will try to play basketball first. If they fail, then they'll look at other sports. And the same thing, of course, goes to swimming, which is, for example, why India, despite being the most populous country in the world, does not have much of a swimming team at the moment, which is a shame, because
We have
I'm sure
cricket.
there's lots of wonderful young Indian boys and girls who could thrive on the international level. But typically it takes one catalyst, to open. Somebody becomes successful at some sports, and all of a sudden everybody else wants to do that sport because everybody likes to identify with success. So I don't know, when I was growing up in Yugoslavia, we had Dražen Petrovic, 𝗀𝘄𝗶𝗺𝗺𝗺, Dino Radja, Vlade Divac, so all these basketball greats.
I'm so sorry. Just give me 1 minute. I will need to shift.
No worries.
Today there is a power cut.
As they say, shit happens. So what can you do?
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
our office is well lit, so I'm not worried at all.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
So
but no,
sorry.
it's are you happy so far? Is it going well? Is it
Yes,
okay? Or
absolutely, absolutely. Just
good.
now, we'll take 1, 2 questions on technology. So we'll cover all the angles. And we are
Perfect.
it's going good.
Excellent.
Yeah. So 1 minute, I'll just wait 1 second. Okay. So even I wanted to understand, what are the policy level interventions or grassroots funding models? Are they happening, or, does the government or public private partnerships need to work more towards that? And, it can help more and more athletes as swimmers to evolve in the coming time.
Yes, I would say that you're spot on. So the government is at the root of it, and if you think about it, the public sector is called the public sector because they're there to serve the public. So, but in order to serve the public more or less needs to know what they want, and in most cases, governments will respond to what the people want, as long as the people can articulate it clearly. If for no other reason, even if it's not for philanthropic reasons, then it's to get re-elected. So, I would say you do, and in swimming specifically, yes, you do depend on governmental support, because without that, you don't have the infrastructure. Because like you said yourself, private pools, if they're open, are very expensive, and then you only get a select few who can use them and compete to that level. And swimming is, to me at least, and I would say internationally as well, swimming is very much a sine qua non. It's an unconditional thing to have, not necessarily in terms of producing the new Katie Ledeckis and Michael Phelpses. They will happen as a byproduct of having pools, but having a healthy society that will know how to swim, that will like to swim, that will not be afraid of water, and that will be healthier, because swimming is one of the best sports that you can possibly be doing. So you're not just by investing into pools, essentially you are saving on what you need to spend for the healthcare, because you're going to have a healthier population overall, and you're not going to be having people, sitting around bars drinking and smoking, and then waiting, to be 40 or 45 and have all sorts of health issues and use the healthcare money that way. This way, to me, always, if you invest into sports infrastructure, you are creating a healthier population for your country. And if that's not a goal worth fighting for, then I really don't know what is. Obviously, the funding mechanisms are different from one country to another. In the US, there's a lot of private-public partnership. In the EU will fund a lot of these projects with 70 to 80%. So that's a competitive advantage that the EU has for this. But yeah, and I'm really not sure what the situation is in India, but looking at the global, obviously, I follow the big international competitions, and it's a shame that India, which is the most populous country in the world and a beautiful country with wonderful people, does not have more people on the podium. Not necessarily just because of that, but I think that would be sort of like the catalyst that would push people more into the pools, into swimming, if there were a couple of outstanding Indian swimmers on the world stage.
True. I agree with that. So, like you being into the industry, like what do you see, like what is the next 5 years for swimmers? How is it shaping up? And like what are the 2, 3 things, how it can, grassroots sports can evolve?
I would say the top level right now, it's a very uncertain time. So I mentioned that the US university system has been sort of like developing the best athletes over the past 10, 15, 20 years. They're having some financial issues now, which are related to essentially being able to pay athletes in some of the biggest sports for the first time in years. And now a lot of the funding is going towards that. So the smaller sports like swimming, track and field, volleyball, whatever, are struggling with funding, and that's becoming an issue. So it's a very uncertain time. I don't know what's going to happen at that level. But I would say, for me, what we just discussed before, I think swimming, not even as a top level sport in terms of Olympic World Championship competitions, I think swimming is not a sport like, I don't know, lacrosse or ice hockey. That's okay, if you do it, and it's great. Even basketball, but like it's not necessary. Swimming is a life skill, So all the other sports really are more or less sports. They're a luxury. Swimming is a life skill. So to me, I would say this is certainly not a sport that people should be cutting corners on. And a global development of the sport should be very much a priority for most governments.
Okay, perfect. Ivan, we'll move on to the next segment of the podcast. That's rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
Okay, I will ask you a few. You will have to be quick in answering.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay. First question. What is your first swim memory? Pool, pond, or puddle?
It was the Adriatic Sea, which is still my favorite puddle in the world. So it's an absolutely beautiful sea to swim in, and I was fortunate enough to be born right next to the coast, and my parents had a house there. So yeah, it's still where I go and relax and swim every summer. So it's really beautiful. You are heartily invited to come and visit whenever you can.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next is football or freestyle, which feels more like flying.
A freestyle, absolutely.
Okay.
Possibly because I was never very, very fast as an athlete. So if I tried to football, I was never as quick as Leo Messi. But I would say freestyle, and especially because you get the feeling of gliding when you're into water, and when you catch that flow, you just get that feeling like you're just gliding through water. It's not an effort. You almost feel like you're a sea animal, and it's really beautiful. You just kind of like glide right through water. It's almost like flying in like that. So I would say it's absolutely beautiful once you get there.
Okay. One swimmer, past or present, you'd love to race against.
I'll say my friend Joe Roebuck. So I'll say my friend Joe Roebuck. He was an Olympian in 2012,
Okay.
and he did the IM, so all four
Wow.
different routes. And I'll be cheeky and I'll say I'd like to race against him because I think that I stand a chance. So
Okay, that's more interesting. Next is who dives better, swimmers or footballers? Tough one.
that's that's an excellent question. I would say unfortunately, probably footballers have become better at diving as of late. So they certainly know how to fall. But yes, diving and starts and swimming are a special thing. And obviously, your result depends on them very much. So they know exactly what they're doing. But yeah, that's become a big thing in football as well. Right now with VAR and everything, thankfully, there's less and less of it. So I'm thankful
Yes.
for that.
Okay. One post-match or post-swim snack you swear by.
You know what? Just give me a good old fashioned banana. So give me that potassium. Just give me. I'm old school like that. I'm always gonna go for a banana, and I'll always have one. Even today, when I do my various sports, I'll always have a banana in the backpack. So it's something that gives you that quickest refuel of energy that you need.
Absolutely. What is your dream location for a global football camp?
Global football camp. Oh, so many. That's a really difficult question. I can't possibly answer it, especially because I haven't really been to some of the beautiful countries like India. But right now, I would say Portugal is looking really beautiful, and that might be my first choice.
Okay. Penalty shootout or final lap? Which one gets your heart racing more?
Tough question. You know what? I'll have to say penalty shootout just because of the pressure involved. So when you look at those people who are top-notch athletes, and you have 100,000 people looking in the stadium and millions more on the television, and it comes down to that one kick, and just seeing the pressure that they carry on their shoulders. To me, I wouldn't miss out on that. So a good penalty shootout, yeah, that's a special thing.
Absolutely. Last question, one gadget or piece of tech you can't train without.
Yeah, I'll say a Garmin watch. So I'll
Hmm.
say a Garmin watch to keep track of what you're doing. So any type of a smartwatch really for that matter, because it helps you track. It allows you to essentially do the work for you. You don't have to count laps. You don't have to
Correct.
focus on what you're doing. You can allow your mind to go where it wants to go, as opposed to sort of like force it into counting things.
Oh, perfect. Like now we'll move on to the next segment of the podcast. That's you'll have to answer one question in 30 seconds.
Oof.
So good luck with that. Like, according to you, what is the role of AI into swimming? Like, the innovations, the grids, what are happening, like from grassroots when we talk to global championships. What is the role of AI into all this?
The rule of artificial intelligence. I don't know. I'll give you a shorter answer than 30 seconds, which is I don't know. So I think AI is going to affect humanity, so it's already affecting humanity in so many different ways. And I don't know what it's going to do. To me, if anything, swimming is a happy spot where I can run away from AI, when I can run away from overthinking. I put on my swim cap, my goggles, and I isolate myself from the technology, from the world, from everything. So I would say to me, this is where I go to run away from all these thinking. But yeah, it's simply too complex a question for a simple athlete like myself.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivan, for sharing wonderful insights and joining us today on the podcast.
Ami, it's been an absolute pleasure. Such a pleasure talking to you. Obviously, all the work that you're doing with your company is tremendous. And then you as a human being, so warm, so welcoming. It's truly a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. So everyone, let's stay connected for more understanding on sports and technology. Please share this episode with your friends, families, and the people who love sports and technology. We will meet in the next episode next time. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring.